Hey there, Rebecca here, your Vibe Mentor, bringing you another video on how to raise your vibration so you can live your best life. Wanted to talk to you today about archetypes. So when we are working on raising our vibration and manifesting the highest potential for our life, achieving the most that we are possibly capable of, understanding the intricacies of our personality is critically important. And just like we have multiple bodies, we have our physical body, our mental body, our emotional body, etc. I'll do another video on that. We also have different facets of our personality or our character. And oftentimes people will get frustrated and say, manifestation doesn't work. It's all a bunch of hype. It's a bunch of mumbo jumbo. And there's a little bit of a unwillingness to do the hard work and look at oneself with full responsibility. And while it's not all positive thinking, which we know, I talk a lot about this, how what comes up for us that is negative or undesirable is a mirror. It's a reflection of part of us that needs to be addressed. It's the blocks that are still within us. And, life happens for us, not to us. So the universe is showing us, God is showing us what we need to work on so that we can manifest what we've been asking for. And so Carl Jung is one of the most well-known people to have talked about archetypes. Certainly Carolyn Myss has a lot of work on this as well. If I pronounce any of these names wrong, forgive me. Name pronunciation is not my strong suit. So you know what I mean. Just bear with me and I'll link you some stuff below. But anyways, Carl Jung, he will say that an archetype is operating within you, and it's the differentiated parts of yourself, and it is not necessarily you. You are the observer. You at your truest core essence are the observer. Your soul is what's able to kind of step back and observe these archetypes and how they behave. There was a story of an old Native American man who was speaking to his grandson, and he was telling the story of two wolves. And the boy was very intently listening to the story, and the grandfather tells him about how the wolves wrestle with each other, and there's one good wolf and one bad wolf, and they're both within us all. We all have both the good wolf and the bad wolf within us, and they're constantly fighting and battling. And the young boy asked his grandfather, well, who wins, Grandpa? How do we know who wins? And of course, the grandfather's answer was the one you feed. And so while we all have all of the potential for all of the archetypes, we have the potential for all of the archetypes within us, they don't necessarily have to win. We just have to be the observer. We have to be aware of them, and we have to learn to use them constructively. There's going to be a time for each of them, and we need to have a relationship with them as if they were our best friend. And so remembering that you are not necessarily that archetype that has come out in that moment. If it's something negative that you don't want to be, it is the observer that says, I don't choose that, and I will bring out the warrior or whatever it may be when it's appropriate. And we will put him to the side, and we will bring out the lover when it is necessary. And so working with them consciously is really all that we need to do. Jung describes archetypes as the forms with which the instinct assumes. And so what that means is when we go unconscious, when we are in our programming, when we act by default and we're not consciously thinking about them, those archetypes tend to take over. That's a tricky word to say 100 times. So we're all fragmented, we're all divided, we're all ruled by unconscious forces if we're not exercising our consciousness and our awareness and sort of building that emotional intelligence. The founder of psychosynthesis, Roberto Assagioli, yes, I think I said that right, said, we are not unified. We often feel that we are because we do not have many bodies and many limbs, because one hand does not usually hit the other. But metaphorically, that is exactly what does happen. Several subpersonalities are continually scuffling. Impulses, desires, principles, aspirations are engaged in unceasing struggle. And so we have to recognize and make peace with the fact that there's going to be parts of us that are constantly at a tug of war. It doesn't have to be a battle. It doesn't have to be something that prohibits you from living life or creating the life that you desire. We just need to learn how to work with them. So the 12 most common archetypes are 1, the creator and the artist, the ruler, the sage, the innocent, the explorer, the rebel, the hero, the wizard or magician. I see the terms used interchangeably. The jester, the everyman, the lover, and the caregiver. And I'll go back over those and what those mean. But essentially, the soul usually acts from the creator and artist, the lover, the outlaw, and the explorer. And so the creator and the artist is that innovation and that creation, obviously. The lover is intimacy and love, compassion, empathy coming from the heart. The outlaw, that was surprising to me, but the outlaw, he's liberating those who are unjustly restricted. And so it's breaking free from the chains of our own doing. The explorer is freedom, which is one of my favorites. It's kind of what I live for. So, and then the self will act from the ruler, which is control. The jester is enjoyment and pleasure. Magician is power, which I thought was interesting. And the sage is understanding. And then the ego acts, also surprising, the ego will act as the caregiver, which is giving of service. But on the flip side, again, is that victim mentality, that martyrdom. And kind of what led to this video is what I've struggled with is the struggler. Life has to be hard. And it's really interesting how all of these parts of us, again, it all goes back to that first 0 to 7, right? Like go back and look at where do these archetypes come from? Where do they really get developed and get stronger and more dominant? And we will, everybody acts from 1 or 2 predominantly. We'll have all of these within us, and the potential for them is always there. We can learn to pull on others once we become more conscious and aware of them, but predominantly you'll have 1 or 2 that habitually come out. Where did I leave off? The ego also is hero and innocence. So again, kind of being a pushover would be innocence. And the hero is, out there to save everyone and not really allowing each person to act in their own power and save themselves. The ego wants to leave a mark on the world, which again, all of these things are healthy in the right place at the right time in the right dose. The other aspects, some are trying to create order and structure in the world so that we can feel safe. Some are for social purposes, for connection, and some are for freedom. If you yearn for paradise, I think a lot of us yearn for heaven on earth and the end to the debt slavery that we exist in today. So all of these, again, have their place. So other common archetypes, there's a lot of them. I'm not going to run through the list because that would just be boring. Google it, you'll find it. But things like mother, father, child, king, queen, mentor, athlete, all those things. So really the point of this video and I want to get to is what do we do with them? We need to know them. We need to understand them and have a relationship with them. Like I said, as if they were our friend. We need to talk to them. And so for me, when I understood that there was a struggler in there, I had to do some meditations around where did that first come in? So when did you first start to develop? When did the life experience and the life circumstances dictate that you were necessary? And so you go back and you put yourself in a calm state, spend at least 5 minutes really walking yourself down to that alpha brain state, and then start to look at what was the earliest time that I felt this, and try to find 2 or 3 ideally, places in your life where you felt like that struggler, for example, was necessary to help you survive. And start to look at them as, again, the observer. You're not reliving traumatic situations. You're not allowing this to dictate your future. You're essentially being the parent to the child at that time and going back and holding space for them and saying, you're safe now. I love you. Let's look at this objectively and see what caused you to think that way and how do we undo that now? And you start to tell yourself, I am not that anymore. I do not need to be that anymore because I will not be that anymore because, and we parent ourselves and we nurture ourselves and have a conversation with that struggler archetype or the hero archetype or the villain archetype or whatever it is that is predominant in your life that is holding you back from manifesting. So ask some questions. Ask, what do you look like? How old are you? What situations bring you out? what is your approach to the world? What would the world look like if you ran the show all the time? And that's a good one, because your conscious mind starts to realize that that's not helpful. Your conscious mind's job is to keep you safe, which unfortunately will keep you in the familiar and the stuck until it starts to realize that whatever mechanisms it's employing are not working. And so we have to start to educate the conscious mind that this is not safe. This is not where we want to be. Ask it, what does it want? What does it need? Just like you as a human being and your, complete wholeness of all of your bodies and all of your archetypes has needs, so does that specific archetype or even that facet of the archetype. And so remember that within the victim is the struggler, right? So we have to get kind of sleuthy and be detective-like and really dig into that and say, okay, I thought I got rid of the victim, but there's more to it. There's always going to be layers to the onion. So we have to keep digging deeper there. Figure out what it needs and meet its needs. Find resourceful ways to be a hero. Find resourceful ways to be a caregiver. To I won't say being a victim is ever going to be good, but there are times where the struggler is also working hard, right? And so working hard has its place. And so we spent 2 weeks working hard. Thank you very much. I'm going to go back to my lover now. I'm going to go back to creating peace and love and joy and following my bliss. And so just allow it its space and time and give it what it needs. Sometimes it just wants to be used, right? It wants to be valuable. And so I'm having realizations here now too, right? So I've been in the joy and the bliss for many, many months. And so that part of me was probably starting to feel helpless or useless. And so it had its time, and now we're learning a little bit more about it, and we'll learn how to employ it more consciously going forward when it's appropriate, and only for a little bit of time. Ask it, what are your blocks to fully functioning? So what blocks does it feel it has that keeps it from only being used when the time is right, and why it needs to dominate? And again, I'm not going to go through the list. Google this. I'll put the questions actually in the description box below to keep things interesting for you. I don't want to bore you to death, but when you're in meditation, you've taken your time to walk down, you've taken your time to have the conversation with it, you're ready to address those 3 times in your life where you saw that archetype really take precedence or dominance, and you're ready to shift those out. You're going to say to yourself, I was not that, I am not that, I will not be that because, and then from there, you've kind of got these 3 pieces of you in your hand, and you're taking them and you're going to put them in a box, and you're going to make maybe even a present box. I kind of like to imagine a treasure chest with chains on it. That sounds a little dark, so maybe we want to make it something a little more loving. Maybe it's a heart-shaped box with chocolates in it. However feels good to you, but put it in that box, walk it down a flight of stairs, put it in a trunk or a storage shed or something where it's down deep and small, right? We want to make things small because it is not this big piece of us anymore. It's small and it's down in a storage unit ready to be used when it's appropriate. And then remember that we have now space. We have opened up space in a good way. I don't want to say it's a hole. It's not something that's missing, but it is an empty space, opportunity to be filled with love. And so we want to fill that place with love. We want to remember that nature abhors a vacuum, so it will always put something in there. So we want to make sure that it's something positive that we want to fill that space with. And so if it was the struggler, we're going to fill it with the lover, fill it with the magician, fill it with the creator. I love the creator. I think that's probably my go-to. So choose what you want to put into that space. And remember, the body keeps the score. So there literally is a physical place within your body. So as you're pulling this out, you're loving on it, you're speaking to it, you're putting it away, you're sending it down the stairs to storage. Remember that your body still has that space. It's not just an energetic space, but there's also a physical space. And so we're going to love on it, and we're going to heal it, and we're going to say thank you and really make sure that we've pulled it out of the body and refilled that space in our body as much as we have energetically. So that is all I have for you today. Understanding our archetypes is so critical when it comes to manifesting, because I think people get really frustrated. They're like, I made this statement of this is what I want to create, and it didn't happen, and I don't understand why. And all of those reflections of it not happening, all those experiences of proof that you still don't have the thing that you've asked for. They're all, like I said, mirrors. They're all God in the universe kind of showing you, hey, look at this. Hey, look at this. This is kind of standing in the way. And until we heal it and work with it and move through it, it's going to be a problem. And so just treat it as a gift and say thank you, and know that you are being led down the path that is divinely guided for you. And sometimes that is not going to be the mansion and the Ferrari. And you're asking for a physical thing that is representative of an emotional thing that you desire. And so the emotion that you desire that's put on your heart is divinely inspired, and it may not be through the path that you think is necessary. So remember to have faith and trust that you are going to be guided to the answer for that desire. It just may not always look like you want it to look. So I believe I have a meditation down below for manifesting abundance, if that's something you're interested in. Otherwise, I'm going to be regularly hosting Facebook pop-up groups, probably at least once a month, to train on a lot of this stuff. There'll be private groups that pop up for those 3 days and then pop back down. So if you want to join, there's a link below for the Facebook page. Otherwise, I'll put an extra link in the description, just so you know where to find us. So tons of support. This is not easy. Again, these are kind of like blind spots. And so I highly, highly recommend a mentor or a coach. You need somebody to help you work through the perspective shifts that are necessary. You can't always do it alone. There's going to be some you can, but 9 times out of 10, you're going to need a coach or a mentor at some point. So invest in yourself, because when you make that statement to the universe and to God to say, I am worthy and I deserve this, and I'm going to invest in myself, whether or not the money is in your bank account doesn't matter. It is that statement where you're making that claim, and you're staking your claim to your abundance, and then God in the universe will respond in kind. Also remember too that giving and receiving are two sides of the same coin. So you can't expect to receive if you don't give, and you can't give if you don't receive. So we have to be balanced in that. So again, that is all I have for you today. I won't keep going, I promise. Check out the links below. Like, subscribe, share, comment, all the fun stuffs. I love you so, so much. Namaste, my friends.